Welcome! This module is designed to introduce you to the intermediate authoring skills, including using components, multi-part questions, and the foundations of writing algorithmic questions. Before we get started, it's important to check your course to see if the questions you want to use already exist. It's far easier and faster to use the material that has been designed and programmed by our professional developers than it is to write your own questions from scratch. Also, be sure to check out the Authoring Basics video first, so you have the fundamental skills before reviewing this advanced skills video. Let's get started. Let's look at some different ways we could ask questions about everybody's favorite beverage, coffee. In one version of this question, I'm going to ask the student to identify the stimulant found in the image. So I write out my question and then click on where I want to insert the image. Notice here that there are tools to insert images, chemical formulas, YouTube videos, and draw your own graphs and tables. For this, I'm going to choose Image. Next, I click on Upload and find the image on my computer's hard drive. I will see a preview of my image here on the right. If I like what I see, I can click Insert, but this image looks a bit too large for the question, so I'll change the dimensions here to something more reasonable. These are pixel dimensions and everything will scale appropriately, so you just have to enter in one dimension. It can be tricky to figure out the pixel size, so don't be afraid to just experiment with a few different numbers until you get the approximate size that you want. And click Save. Next, I'll click on the answer field to enter the correct answer for this question. Notice here that the molecular input tool automatically pops up so that I can easily format my chemical formula for caffeine. Next, I'll save the question and look at a preview. Everything looks good, so let's enter another part of this question. Next, I'm going to ask the student to draw the molecular structure. And to do that, we'll use this ChemSketch tool. I'll click on Field and choose the type of answer field for this question. Notice there's lots of different answer fields to select. For this, the ChemSketch one is what I want. In the ChemSketch area, enter the molecular structure that you want the students to draw as the correct answer. If you're unsure of how to use this tool or any of its parts, feel free to click on the little help link here, which will give you a tutorial for how to use all the tools. If everything looks good, I will save and preview my question. So to review, if you want to add any parts to your questions that are more than just text, click on the component menu to add things like images, chemical formulas, structures, or graphs to your question. If you want to add or change the type of answer box where the student will enter their answer, click on the Field drop-down menu. Any images that you've used will appear over here in your My Images folder. For the next skill, let's build a question that uses algorithmic variables. Algorithmic variables in authored questions means that question values change with each student attempt, which can be useful to reduce cheating and allow students multiple attempts. First, I'll make a new question using the number template to demonstrate how to use number variables. This question will ask the student a conversion question about meters and kilometers. This spot right here is a placeholder for where I want my number variable to go. When I'm ready, I'll click where the placeholder is and remove it, and then click on the algorithmic tool. The Algorithmic Authoring pane will open here on the right, and then I'll click Create New Variable. You have several different options for which type of variable to use. An integer variable will assign a random integer value between a max and minimum values. Real numbers are positive numbers randomly assigned between a max and minimum value. The one of option randomly chooses from a set of word or number choices that you input. A formula creates a variable based on an expression, so it can be based on algorithmic variables you've already created. The limit will exclude any values you don't want to use for a variable set. Var set is for variables that depend on each other. For example, if you want to pair a set of anions with a set of cations, and the comments are variables used in a formula description. For this example, I'll start with the real variable. When I choose this type of variable, I get an active field here where I can input the variable name and then click Create Algorithm. Next, click the variables to put in the details of the minimum value, the maximum value, and the incremental step value. For this, I'll choose a minimum value of 5 kilometers with a max value of 10 and incremental steps of 0.1 in between. I'll save this algorithm, and next I want to create a formula to calculate the correct answer. So I'll click Create New Variable and choose Formula as the type of variable to create. Again, I'll name the formula, create it, and then input its details. The answer to this question will always be the kilometer variable times 1,000, so that's what the formula will be. Now back in the question pane, I click on where I want the variable to go and click Insert. Variables within questions will appear with orange highlight. And I'll click the Answer field to insert the formula variable. And I'll save and preview my work. It looks good. Now, let's write a question that has multiple interdependent variables. Again, the answer will be a number, but this time we'll ask a question where the amount and substance are both variables in the question. This type of algorithmic variable is used extensively throughout OWLv2, so both the chemicals and numbers change with each student attempt. Here I've capitalized words to represent the placeholders where our variables will go. The amount does not depend on the substance, so we can create a variable for the amount, much like we did for the previous kilometer example. Again, we'll choose a real number variable. I'll name the variable, create it, and enter my minimum values and max values and step. So for this, we'll use a minimum value of 0.1, a max value of 5, and the step value of increment as 0.01. I'll save the algorithm and insert the variable into the question. Now, the substance variable is going to be a bit more complicated because each substance is going to have a different molar mass. We can't just randomly pick a substance, then randomly pick a molar mass. The two have to be tied together. So for this one, we'll choose the var set as the variable type. Notice here how the box to name the variable is grayed out. This is because we'll actually be creating a number of variables all at once, so it will require multiple names. On the first line, you will list the names of the variables that are interdependent. Then use a line for each set you want to add. For this example, I'll use the formulas for water and carbon dioxide. Note that any text should be in quotes. Use an underscore before a subscript and a caret before a superscript. The entire subscript or superscript should be enclosed in curly brackets. This will ensure that your formula will be displayed properly. Save the algorithm. There is one more important thing to remember here. If your variable uses any of this subscript or superscript formatting, you'll need to insert a chemical formula component box as well to make the formula display properly. So insert the chemical formula box, then insert your formula. Let's do a quick preview to make sure everything looks good. The question looks good, but we still need to insert the answer field variable. Just like the kilometer example, the answer here will be a formula. So from the drop-down menu, I will choose formula as the type of variable, name it, and then insert the formula. The answer will be the amount times the molar mass. Next, I'll click on the answer field in the question area to insert the mass variable. And let's take a preview to see how this question looks. It looks good. Notice how my chemical formula here is bolded. This will happen automatically for all chem and number formulas that you add to your question because it will automatically create them as Mathml. Mathml stands for Mathematical Markup Language, which is how chemical and math formulas can display correctly in a web environment. One catch to this is that any formula you use will always be bolded and will be in this Times New Roman font. You can't change this, but one thing you can do is change the font and size of the rest of the text to match the Mathml if you want. This isn't necessary, but can just make your question look better. Another thing you can do is add optional hints and feedback. Students can opt to see the hint before they start working on a question. For this kilometer question we wrote, I might put in a hint of the conversion factor. There's a little bit of clicking down here to make the hint appear. If you want to add feedback for any answer, click on the feedback area and write in the feedback you want students to always see, whether they get the answer correct or incorrect. This is useful for telling the students how to do the problem correctly. To add answer-specific feedback, click on the answer field from the question pane. Then, write in the rejoinder you want the students to see for entering the correct answer. Let's look at a preview. There's the hint, and that's the special rejoinder for the correct answer. And then below that, we have the feedback that all students will see after question submission. Let's review some final tips about authoring. First, one common error new authors make is copying and pasting from other sources like Word documents. Copying and pasting from other sources can cause things to display incorrectly or not at all, so be sure to type everything in fresh. Be careful about accidentally clicking enter or adding spaces in your answer field. Don't click enter after putting in an answer. It will add an invisible character that you won't see, but will mean answers won't be accepted. And a few things to remember. If you want to add a chemical formula to your question, use the chemical formula component. If you want to add a mathematical formula to your question, use the mathematical formula tool here. Remember that any text within variables has to be in quotes, carets, and underscores. And before you insert any variable that includes a chemistry or math formula, be sure to put that component into your algorithmic variable box. You need to make a component box with an algorithmic box inside it so that your chemistry or math formula will display correctly. Remember to click the Publish button when you're finished so your newly authored questions can get added to assignments. And finally, remember to test out several versions of your questions using the student view after you have put them into assignments to make sure they work as you intend them to. Questions that don't work correctly or have odd feedback can cause a lot of problems and confusions for students, so make sure you test them thoroughly before releasing. If you need more information, please check out our authoring guide at www.cengage.com/training/OWLv2.